everybody, welcome back once again to my reviews. Thanks for coming to the channel. Thanks for all the likes and the subscribers that I've got so far. It's been great. And thank you to all the views. That's all I can say. So far the channel's been taking off a little bit, in my eyes anyway. Maybe not in the eyes of a major YouTube at the moment, but yes, it's bigger than I thought it was going to be for me anyway. So today's a movie review. I'm going to be reviewing Death Wish 2. I've already reviewed Death Wish 1, so if you want to go and see that, the first ever Death Wish, which was my favourite movie, actually my favourite movie of all time, was Death Wish, the first one. Something about that movie, the grittiness and the action, but I explained that in the first review. So if you want to go and see that one, I'll put a link in the description. There's a link in the description to all my reviews, so you can go and see them. So this is Death Wish 2. And it was released in the 11th of February 1982 in the UK, and directed once again by Michael Winner. Guys, so in the first Death Wish movie, I explained it to you that it had that old school violence. It was a 70s movie. It didn't have any holds barred on anything, you know, as I said to you before with the movies like Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, Deliverance. Those kind of movies, you know, I Spit on Your Grave, where it didn't hold anything back, where it's quite stomach churning to watch. This one definitely ups the ante on it. It's 100% more violent than the original. Now, I didn't like this one of the original because the concept slightly changed in this one. As you know, let's just do a spoiler warning, because obviously I've got to talk a bit about the movie, but I don't want to spoil it for everybody if you haven't seen this one. Because the first one, like I say, is undoubtedly the best. But then it is with most movies, isn't it? You can't really doubt that, can you, with movies? So yeah, let's discuss Death Wish 2. So, as I said, up in the ante in this one. The violence was just absolutely off the scale in this one, but with a different concept. So, the concept of the first one was based around what was going on. Paul Kersey's character, played by Charles Bronson, was just sick of the unnecessary violence and the injustice of everything that had gone on in his life and what had happened to him. And he decided that he was going to be a vigilante, and he was going to take out anybody. He didn't care who it was. If they were involved in crime, he was going to get them in the original. Mainly muggers, though, he was looking for, or robbers as we call it in the UK, but muggers. This one centres around a little different. He only goes after the people involved in this one. So he's not so focused on the crime itself and the injustice. He's more focused on the injustice to himself and avenging what's happened to him, which brings him back in his vigilante ways again. So this is obviously an 18. You've got to be 18 to watch this, and I can understand why. The opening scene in this is, I mean, the brutality of the opening scene, the opening kind of scene is just horrendous, you know. I mean, not the very first part of the movie, but the section of the movie where there's two sections really, which are quite brutal and stomach churning. But yeah, so let's go over the cast again this time. So you had Charles Bronson returning as Paul Kersey. He sadly passed away in 2003. Fantastic actor he was. Always kept in good shape. Always looked like a tough guy, didn't he? But could play a placid person as well. So just a good all-round actor. I did like Charles Bronson. I loved him in The Mechanic. Thought he was great in The Mechanic. Murphy's Law. Those kind of movies. He did a lot of those movies, didn't he? That one, Something to Midnight, was really good. That he did. And yeah, a lot of his movies are found involved injustices and setting things right and stuff like that. So yeah, he was a very, very good actor, was Charles Bronson, who's sadly no longer with us anymore. His wife, I don't know if she was his ex-wife or his wife, Jill Ireland, she actually played Jerry Nichols in this movie. Vincent Gardina returned as Lieutenant Frank Ochoa in the first one. I gave him a lot of praise in the last movie because I think he really helped make the movie what it was, as that gritty New York detective who was on the trail of Kersey and was tracking him down. Very, very good part of the film, the original Death Wish. He returns in this one. I'll explain a little bit about that in a while. You had J.D. Cannon as the New York City District Attorney. He was very good. He was in a lot of the 70s and 80s movies and TV shows. Now, Lawrence Fishburne is in this one, but he's credited as Larry Fishburne, which he used to use in his early days. So, yeah, he's down as Larry Fishburne, but we all know him as Lawrence Fishburne, don't we? So yeah, Carol Kersey returns. So we've got the character of Robin Sherwood as Carol Kersey. That's Kersey's daughter from the first one. And the great Charles Cyphers is in this as well. Remember Charles Cyphers? He was from the John Carpenter movies, wasn't he? He was a Carpenter regular, wasn't he? Played Dan the Weatherman in The Fog, and the transportation officer in Assault on Precinct 13. So yeah, he was in this as well. You got a cool guy called Ben Frank who plays the police lieutenant in this art. He's very good. Not quite, he's on the same level as Ochoa, but he is very good on it in this film. And Sylvia Gallardo played the housekeeper Rosario. Now, credit to this woman for, having to do that scene which she did at the beginning, the horrific scene where where she's attacked, because that took ages to film apparently. I think I'm talking days here. Yeah, all credit to her, because she must have gone through a lot to film that, and everyone else involved in it must have been quite repulsed by it as well, because it's an absolutely horrific scene. So what has happened in this movie? So let's go on to Kersey and his situation. So Kersey has now finished for the minute his vigilante ways. He's moved to Los Angeles, which was a part of the story I didn't get why they picked Los Angeles, because I'm pretty sure at the end of Death Wish 1, when he does the gun symbol, he's in Chicago. I'm sure of it. He moves from New York to Chicago. But I might be wrong. But yeah, so he goes to LA. He's took his daughter Carol with him. And she's still the same. Not talking. She's basically suffering some sort of major, what I can only assume is some sort of PTSD after the events of the first film where she was attacked. She's still not talking, but they live, he looks after her, and she's in a care place, but he looks after her and he visits her and takes her out and stuff like that. So she's basically not any better than she was in the first movie, but they now live in LA. What I found weird about that was at the end of the first Death Wish, Kersey was kind of questioning, the film itself was kind of questioning a very controversial subject, wasn't it, on gun rights and stuff like that. Now I don't know nothing about this being from the UK, but he lived in a gun control state, obviously, didn't he? And the problems he had, he felt he wasn't able to defend himself, and he felt that the law had let him down and stuff like that. And it really picked up Death Wish 1, didn't it, when he got hold of that gun from Ames the cowboy, won it in Tucson, and that's when he starts the illegality of what he's doing. Now, I would have thought that at the end of Death Wish 1, if he had felt that way, he'd probably want to move to a state where they don't have those laws. But that would be just my realm of thinking, I think, if it happened to me. But then he moves to another state where I think the laws are very similar, aren't they, in LA? He moves to Chicago. I know definitely Chicago has laws, doesn't it? Strict laws, but yeah, he moved to Chicago at the end of Death Wish 1, didn't he? Which is, yeah. So he moved there, but then for somehow he ends up in LA, Los Angeles, California. which is the start of this movie. Now, Kersey, original work, he was an architect, wasn't he? So he picks that up again in this movie. So he starts out, got a successful architect business, a new lady that he's seeing, and they're getting close to tying a knot sort of stage of their relationship. They're obviously in love. The annoying son-in-law from the first one, very good actor who played him, I'm not putting him down, but the annoying son-in-law, he isn't in this one. He just disappears, and it's not even mentioned, not once, which I found very odd. I found that very strange that he wasn't even at least mentioned. But I guess they must have divorced and he's gone his separate ways and that's it. So you don't see him again, but he's a character that just disappeared, as irritating as he was. So Kersey started his new life in LA. He's an architect, he's successful. He's got a successful, I think she's like a radio host girlfriend. And they're enjoying their life together, and he's trying to incorporate, Carol into their lives. So is the scenery as scary in this one? Yeah, it is, yeah. Some of it's looks quite grimy and stuff like that, even though it's in a very rich area, isn't it? But some of the areas obviously aren't rich, some of them are just very rich, aren't they? In Los Angeles, like I suppose like Beverly Hills and all that, isn't it? And stuff like that, expensive areas, isn't it? But yeah, so as I said to you, this one, it really does up the hard to watch scenes. I normally do a read of the back cover of the DVD, but it basically tells the whole story on the back cover, which I found very strange for a DVD. They don't really do that, do they? They normally cut it so that it's a little bit whet your appetite to get you to buy it. But yeah, so goes along the same lines. Kersey has a run-in with some street punks, typical sort of street punks. They all look, pretty cool. It's got the guy who plays, I don't know his name, but he plays Raptor Man in Full Metal Jacket. He's one of the punks, and Lawrence Fishburne being another. And yeah, so he runs into these punks, and somehow out of that comes a horrendous home invasion. Now again, I'm going to go back about this scene. In that home invasion, it's one of those scenes where you watch it and you think, oh my god, this is horrific. I mean, the actress who played that part of the housekeeper, I mean, what she probably went through to film that scene, and why obviously it had to be that graphic, I don't know, but that was the way of those films of that time, wasn't it? And as much as like I Spit on Your Grave is an awful concept, you do feel a sense of happiness at the end when she's getting her revenge, don't you, on these horrible people. But I suppose they went with a mindset that you have to know what that person went through in order to know what you're watching, because otherwise you won't truly understand it. But yeah, it's horrific, isn't it? Scenes like that from Hills Have Eyes, and as you say, those scenes where you just think, oh god, what is going on here, sort of thing. They're hard to wipe from your mind, aren't they? But this was a very good movie. It was very good. Bronson again plays the part brilliantly. He goes after these guys. He basically steps back into Mr. Vigilante's shoes. But like I say, there's a difference in this movie, is that he kind of only targets the gang this time. He doesn't just go out generally looking for muggers or home invaders or anything like that. He just looks for this group. He does get a few people that aren't involved, but they're linked to this group, and then they end up attacking him. So it's kind of like some very cool scenes in this movie. Very cool scenes. When he catches up with some of the gang members, there's some good bits in this. Like I say, Ochoa's back on the trail again, believe it or not. Yeah, he's a New York cop in here, and you're thinking, well, what's Ochoa doing in LA? Well, basically, The powers that be in New York struck a deal with Ochoa, didn't they? Because the muggings went down. So they allowed Kersey to walk and made Ochoa say that they never caught the vigilante, that they don't know who it was. Because muggers were scared in New York that Kersey was still out there, so they wanted to keep this what would be the word? This almost like maybe like a deception that the vigilante's still out there. You watch out because he's still out there. If you mug people, you're going to get shot by the vigilante. Because crime was down, so the powers that be decided that was the best way forward, to keep Kersey quiet, get him out of their state, and then run this false operation of he's still out there. The boogeyman. Yeah, that was probably the best term to use. The boogeyman is still out there. So Kersey ended up going to LA, living his normal life. However, once he started picking up his game again, and LA started to say they had a vigilante problem, Ochoa was summoned by the heads of New York to sort of say, you better get to LA and shut him down, because if he gets caught, he might tell on us. So it all goes back to corruption again. And Ochoa, being the good cop that he was, that didn't want to let Kersey go in the first place, he wanted to bang Kersey up. He realised that his career was also on the line, because they then tell him that if he gets caught, he's gonna name you. So Ochoa realised that he needed to go to LA, track Kersey down, and try to get him to shut it down without LA finding out who he is. So that's a good part of this story as well. Obviously, the spoiler part for me of this movie is going to spoil it a bit, was Ochoa's death. I was quite sad when Ochoa gets killed in this movie. But on his death, at the moment of his death, he kind of lets Kersey know that, I think he kind of lets him know in his own way that he agrees with what Kersey's doing. That he's doing stuff that Kersey can't do, which is also a good part of this movie. This part of the movie also explains that revenge, can eat you up inside, can consume you, and you can lose everything you've got trying to get it. But who wouldn't want to avenge themselves in that situation? And that's what this movie is all about. Revenge. Getting your revenge, getting your piece of the pie. So yeah, another great movie. I will be reviewing the other Death Wishes, because I do like Death Wish movies. I think they're great. The third one being probably my least favourite, but at the same time I did find it very entertaining. Death Wish 3, very entertaining. I will be reviewing 3, 4 and 5, because they've all got to be reviewed. I actually really liked 4 and 5. I thought they were actually pretty good. Obviously not on the same level as the first two, these two. But, you know, I mean, because I spoke about the other Death Wish when I did the original review of the first Death Wish, the remake that had the great Bruce Willis in it. Now, I like that movie, but what I try to do with movies like that is the same with the Equalizer movies. I don't compare them to the original. I treat them like they're a standalone movie. Kind of like Assault on Precinct 13 remake. The great Gabriel Byrne and Ethan Hawke. They're standalone movies. You think of them as nothing to do with the first one, the original. It's just a different movie. And that's the same concept I tried to adapt with the Death Wish remake by Bruce Willis. Very good story, actually a very good film. Some good scenes in that. But the only problem with that was it's in the wrong time. You were to go out and do this now, something scientific way will capture you. There's no way you'll get away with it for long. Like Kersey in the first one, he's just bowling round, isn't he? There's no CCTV, there's no... It was that time, wasn't it, where there was... Unless someone saw the person and named the person, it was so hard to capture you, wasn't it? So that's why the new Death Wish wasn't going to work for me. Because he would have got caught. Nowadays, he would have just got caught, you know, especially with your face going on social media, like in that, where he practically goes on social media. There'll be some way of working out who he is. He's probably past 50 million street cameras just coming out his front door. So, yeah, it was a good movie though. I'm not knocking it. I really liked it. But take the realism out of it, because you have to be realistic, don't you? And that was it. That's why Death Wish 1 was so magical. And Death Wish 2, because they were filmed in times where it was hard to get a person. It took real police work to find out who a person was. You know, DNA was, yeah, it was there. But it was really hard to get somebody, you know. Nowadays, CCTV, facial recognition, you can't go anywhere without being on a camera, you know. So you're going to get caught. But yeah, we're going off the topic a little bit, aren't we? But great movies, both of them, Death Wish 1 and 2. And I've really enjoyed the review. So, yeah, so just a quick recap of what we've done so far. So, Kersey, the plot this time centres around a gang led by a guy called Nirvana. And he's basically trying to avenge the death of his daughter this time. Because she actually, you know, she buys it in this one, which is quite sad. And the way it happens is quite sad as well. She doesn't get a, you know, as I said, this one is quite stomach churning. She gets no sort of fair ending. And the death of his housekeeper. So this is to do with a home invasion, and that was a horrific scene, like I say. Now, it was... The soundtrack to this was composed by Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin being a cool band that they are. Yeah, so it goes into the gang, and the gang are, like I say, going around committing horrific crimes in this. And they commit quite a few all through this. It's quite, like I say, stomach churning all the way through this one. But yeah, it's a good film. It's well worth a watch, guys. It's well worth a watch, but you've got to have a strong stomach to watch the first scene. Like I say, it was absolutely brutal, and that lady, you know, deserved hopefully got a big payday for doing this movie. I don't know if they actually did, but yeah, so that is Death Wish 2. Thanks for coming back to the reviews. I've enjoyed doing all the reviews so far. Let me know what you think in the comments, what your experiences are with these movies, or what you think of these movies, and things I might not have mentioned about these movies. But yeah, as I say, it was quite sad to see Vincent Gardena, you know, come back as Ochoa and be his usual New York self, and then he gets killed off. So quite sad. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Leave some mentions in the comments, because it really does help. This crazy algorithm thing, you know, that I'm fighting here on YouTube. Yeah, it's very cool. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care now. Goodbye.